I'm Josh Larky, and this is the Dominator. Today, I'm going to be finding fantasy values using the betting markets. So, welcome in, everyone. I'm recording this podcast on a pretty heavy pretty heavy cocktail of pills for a current and pretty serious health issue. I was going to stream yesterday afternoon, but the hydrocodone hit a little too hard. We've all been there. Anyway, if anyone wants more info on why this happened, brief health update, anything like that, I'll discuss this at the end of the podcast, since I know that most of you simply want the fantasy and betting takes. And apologies if there's awkward pauses. I really have a detailed show sheet, but my quick thinking and processing might not be as sharp as usual right now. So we're finding fantasy values using the betting markets. All betting odds are from DraftKings Sportsbook. I'd encourage everyone listening to line shop before placing any futures bets. And all ADPs are from Underdog Fantasy. Let's start with the most regular season passing yards market on DraftKings Sportsbook. Most regular season passing yards. We'll notice that Jared Goff and Tua Tagovailoa are actually tied for fourth. Goff and Tua fourth, highest odds, tied at 8-1 to lead the NFL in passing yards. Joe Burrow, basically there, but a touch behind. He's 8.5-1. He's sixth behind Goff and Tua, splitting in fourth place. Jared Goff and Tua Tagovailoa both have an ADP of about 125 on Underdog Fantasy. Burrow's is 90. So Burrow goes, we're doing quick math. 3 rounds, exactly, 35 picks. Yeah, about 3 rounds earlier. Though Burrow has them beat in passing touchdowns, he's 11-1 to lead the NFL. They're both 16-1. So Burrow, Goff, Tua, all similar passing yardage, a little edged Burrow in the passing touchdowns. I really like when I like taking Joe Burrow when I already have Jamar Chase, T. Higgins on my team for the stack. Otherwise, Burrow's kind of a stay away for me. And it's interesting that the more I dig into it, Goff and Tua, they profile reasonably similarly to Joe Burrow. I don't think people realize how much less Burrow's run over the past 2 seasons. The rushing yardage that we saw kind of early on in his rookie year is almost non-existent now. Let's turn to the most rushing yards market. This is a really good one. The Burrow one, slight edge. This, I think, is actually a very interesting one. Josh Jacobs, most rushing yards in the NFL, 16-1. That's the 7th highest odds, 16-1 for Josh Jacobs. Isaiah Pacheco is at 25-1. Pacheco, much worse odds. Then we turn to most rushing touchdowns. Josh Jacobs, 20-1. Pacheco, 25-1. Folks, Isaiah Pacheco goes a full round earlier, which makes a difference in the early rounds. Pacheco, 4th round pick. Jacobs, 5th round pick in fantasy football right now on Underdog Fantasy. This is crazy. Jacobs is supposed to have more rushing yards, more rushing touchdowns for his upside and likelihood of hitting that upside. As a pass catcher, I might even lean Josh Jacobs. Jordan Love loves to pass the ball to the running back. And I think people don't realize this because Aaron Jones had a 50% snap share last year. But all right, here we go. We're going to get analytical here, folks. Buckle the fuck up. When we look at snaps where Aaron Jones was on the field with Jordan Love last year, Aaron Jones's target share was 25%. Basically, when Aaron Jones is on the field, 1 in 4 passing plays was a dump off to Aaron Jones. Josh Jacobs is probably going to have more than a 50% snap share. Marshawn Lloyd's never had more than 120 college touches. I like Lloyd as a late round pick, but let's not act like Marshawn Lloyd's just going to take over this backfield or unseat a bell cow in Josh Jacobs. Lloyd is probably a 1B committee back at best, most likely the breather back. I'm all in on Josh Jacobs. I couldn't be more in on a guy that's got a decent offensive line with a great quarterback, who's going to have a really, really good role, has a history of heavy usage on a top 5 offense. Book it. Now, another one that I think is really interesting is really polarizing player Zamir White. A lot of people hate Zamir White. Zamir White, currently 25-1 for most rushing yards in the NFL. Am I going to bet that? No. But I think it makes sense. Zamir White's on an offense where they really want to run the damn ball. New head coach Antonio Pierce, what we saw last year is they're going to play top 10 defense and run the ball. That's what they think their path to success is. Zamir White, 25-1. to lead the NFL in rushing yards. Same as Pacheco, by the way. But let's compare him to Kenneth Walker. Kenneth Walker's 30-1. So I feel like they're similar players in terms of they both are speed score guys. They're both big, fast running backs. Zamir White, 25-1 to lead the NFL in rushing yards. Kenneth Walker, 30-1. Zamir White's ADP is 88. Walker's ADP is 69. There's about a round and a half of difference there. And Zamir White's got almost no competition in the backfield. I get that his role is a little shakier because he's not a second-round pick like Walker, but he was an absolute stud in college. And the reason that his draft stock fell so much and why he went in the fourth round of the Raiders was because of, I believe it was 2 ACL tears in college. I think he's fine now. He ran a 4.4 at the combine at like 215 pounds. Zamir White might actually be a fantasy football value, or we should be a little bit less excited to draft Kenneth Walker. Let's turn to most rushing touchdowns. Derrick Henry is second behind only Christian McCaffrey. Henry is 6.5-1 to lead the NFL in rushing touchdowns. He is now on the Ravens. He gets an offensive line upgrade from the Titans. He gets a quarterback upgrade. The mobile Lamar Jackson will help his rushing efficiency compared to Will Levis. And we know that game script is going to be on his side with the Ravens. And there were times last year where he was simply scripted out of games. That's why his snap share was only 50% with the Titans last year. But good news, folks, good news. Henry still led the NFL in carries last year. He's still going to get an absolute shitload of work. There, I said it. He's going to get I think he's going to lead the NFL in carries again. Most rushing touchdowns, he's 6.5-1. Compare that to Jonathan Taylor, 14-1 to lead the NFL in rushing touchdowns because Anthony Richardson has 40 pounds on Lamar Jackson. He is going to run the ball more at the goal line and take more opportunities away from Jonathan Taylor. The Ravens are going to have a better offense than the Colts. Now, Henry is 8-1 to lead the NFL in total touchdowns as well, rushing and receiving. Taylor is 12-1 there. So people saying, oh, but Taylor catches passes. How many passes do we think Jonathan Taylor is going to catch for touchdowns? Receiving touchdowns at the running back position are low to begin with. So the way I see it is Taylor's ADP is 16 on Underdog Fantasy. Henry's ADP is 29. Full round difference early on in your drafts. This matters. And I also like Raheem Mostert. I'm coming around to him. So at first I faded him because I was like, guys, this is a 32-year-old who couldn't stay healthy. And then he finally breaks out at age 31 and leads the NFL in rushing touchdowns. But Mostert's ADP is 94. And when I checked the betting markets, Mostert is 12-1 in total touchdowns. He's tied with Jonathan Taylor. Henry at 8-1 to lead the NFL in total touchdowns. Mostert is 12-1. Mostert's 15-1. That's fourth for rushing touchdowns specifically. Mostert is nearly Jonathan Taylor in the touchdown department. Yet his ADP is 94 on Underdog Fantasy. Taylor is 16. Henry's 29. Last take on the rushing touchdowns. Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts are both 15-1 to lead the NFL in rushing touchdowns. I would expect a better passing season from Jalen Hurts given the better supporting cast. He's got a better offensive line. He's got better pass catchers. He's throwing to A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, Dallas Goedert. We know that Josh Allen is throwing to rookie Keon Coleman. Dalton Kincaid did a little something as a rookie last year, but it's not like this guy's expected to be a superstar. He's got Curtis Samuel, good role player plus type. He's got Khalil Shakir, inefficient slot receiver from last year in terms of his targets whenever he was on the field. And I think Hurts is going to run more in terms of rushing yards. I think there's a good chance he has similar, if not more rushing yards than Josh Allen. His rushing yard ceiling has been higher at the NFL level than Josh Allen. Hurts' ADP is 41. Allen's is half round earlier. It's 37. I think Hurts is going to beat him potentially in rushing and will definitely beat him in passing as well.
This episode is made possible by Underdog Fantasy, and Underdog Fantasy is the leader in best ball. When you go to join an Underdog Fantasy best ball draft, it fills very quickly, especially now. It's Best Ball Mania season, baby. Best Ball Mania 5. I can't believe they're at Best Ball Mania 5 already. $15 million in prizes. They're giving out $15 million with $1.5 million to first. Playing in best ball leagues makes you better. It helps train you on player value and strategy. And Underdog offers a lot more than just best ball contests. They offer pick'ems. My new favorite, the golf pick'ems, baseball pick'ems going on throughout the off season. Hit the pick'ems, back to best ball, hit the pick'ems. So use promo code Underworld. Promo code Underworld gets you a 50% deposit bonus up to $250. So they've increased the maximum deposit bonus. It was $100. Now it's up to $125. When you get the Underdog app, use promo code Underworld and go draft your ass off.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm Josh Larky. This is the Dominator. We are finding fantasy values using the betting markets. Let's talk about most receiving yards. I've talked a few times about this. I'm fading Marvin Harrison Jr. Just in general right now, it's just hard to push the button. So he's 25-1 to lead the NFL in receiving yards. That's tied for 19th. And he's 40-1 to lead the NFL in receiving touchdowns. That's 22nd. Marvin Harrison ADP, 13 overall. Blows my mind. Now, who should we draft? I'm drafting a lot of Marquise Hollywood Brown. He's 40-1 to lead the NFL in receiving yards. His ADP is 53. 40-1 to lead the NFL in receiving yards. That is identical to Tank Dell, ADP 35, Zay Flowers, ADP 36, George Pickens, ADP 39, Amari Cooper, ADP 40. These are all round 3, round 4 turn picks. Marquise Brown is a round 5 pick with the same odds to lead the NFL in receiving yards. But Josh, what about the touchdown? We'll get to the touchdowns. Also, Deontay Johnson, ADP 70, is 40-1 to lead the NFL in receiving yards. Now, Hollywood Brown, you're talking touchdowns because you're like, okay, he has the same receiving yards upside, according to the betting markets, as Tank Dell, Zay Flowers, George Pickens. Okay, let's talk touchdowns, folks. I'm glad you asked. Hollywood has better odds, 40-1 to lead the NFL in touchdowns, 40-1 for Hollywood, 50-1 to Dell, 50-1 for Zay Flowers, 70-1 for Pickens. Deontay Johnson himself is 50-1 here, so he's the same as Dell. He's the same as Pickens. Deontay Johnson has the same receiving yards upside, the same touchdown upside in the betting markets as Tank Dell and George Pickens, and Tank Dell and Zay Flowers, and he goes 3-4 rounds later on Underdog, and he has better touchdown upside than George Pickens according to the betting markets. I don't know if I agree with that, given that he's on the Panthers, but I don't know. I'm not a lines maker. All I know is that these markets, I wouldn't say they're the sharpest by any means that DraftKings has, like actual spreads and totals during the NFL season are the sharpest markets out there. But I'd say that this is a reasonable thing for me to at least look at. Now, another one, Ridley's 30-1 to lead the NFL in receiving yards. That's the same as DK Metcalf. Metcalf's 25-1 to lead the NFL in touchdowns. Ridley's 50-1. So basically, Ridley and Metcalf, same receiving yards upside. Metcalf, significantly better touchdown upside, but the difference is huge. Metcalf's ADP is 26 overall, beginning of the 3rd round. Ridley's ADP 58 overall, end of the 5th round. I have not taken a whole lot of DK Metcalf. Shaky quarterback play most likely from Geno Smith, given that many are projecting the Seahawks to have a bottom 5 offensive line this season. And we know that Metcalf's going to be running a lot of deep routes. That's where he makes his money in fantasy football. Geno is going to struggle to hit him deep if he's under pressure. Now, Jaden Reed and Christian Kirk are both 50-1 to lead the league in receiving yards. Reed and Kirk, same receiving yards upside. But Jaden Reed is 35-1 for the most receiving touchdowns. I already talked to Packers, top 5 offense. Book it. Reed, 35-1 most receiving touchdowns. Christian Kirk is down. Christian Kirk is down at 80-1. So similar receiving yards upside. Reed, way more receiving touchdown upside. Yet Christian Kirk's ADP is 45, 4th round. Jaden Reed, ADP 57, 5th round. They're a full round apart, 12 picks apart on Underdog Fantasy. I don't get it. I have more Reed than Kirk in my best ball portfolio. I will have more Reed than Kirk in my redraft portfolio. Now, another guy, folks, buckle up. This is my favorite part of the show. Now Christian Kirk and Jaden Reed are both 50-1 to lead the league in receiving yards. Another guy is Kyle Pitts is 50-1 to lead the NFL in receiving yards. He's 50-1 to lead the NFL in receiving touchdowns. Essentially, Kyle Pitts has similar receiving yards upside to Christian Kirk and better touchdown upside. What are we doing? Kyle Pitts' ADP is not 45 like Christian Kirk. It's not 57 like Jaden Reed. It's 60. And Kyle Pitts is tight end eligible at a position starving for fantasy points. Kyle Pitts, can't stop drafting him. Underdog Fantasy, Josh Larky, the Dominator. Malik Neighbors, he's 50-1 to lead the NFL in receiving yards. That's the same as Christian Kirk, Jaden Reed, but he's 80-1 to lead in receiving touchdowns. That is also the same as Christian Kirk. And Malik Neighbors, 50 to 1 and 80 to 1. If you really want a Jacksonville receiver, I mean, Brian Thomas is the same. Brian Thomas, 50 to 1 in receiving yards, 80 to 1 in receiving touchdowns. Brian Thomas, the same upside. Malik Neighbors, ADP 27. Christian Kirk, ADP 45. Brian Thomas, ADP 74. Neighbors is a 6th overall pick, rookie wide receiver. He's got no target competition. I understand wanting exposure to him, especially in best ball tournaments where he can hit late. But, I mean, come on, folks. Brian Thomas, at least right now, looks like a value. Most receiving touchdowns. Christian Watson here is 20 to 1 to lead the NFL in receiving touchdowns. That's 9th best behind 8th place Mike Evans. Mike Evans' ADP is 24. I'm not even saying Mike Evans is a bad pick. I get it. Mike Evans has been awesome. But then you should love Christian Watson. He does not go at pick 24 like Mike Evans. He goes at pick 69. Nice. We should be drafting Packers. One last take. This is a straight up betting take. I have line shopped this straight up. I like Cooper Kupp to lead the NFL in receiving touchdowns at 45 to 1. In 2021, he led the NFL with 16 receiving touchdowns. Nobody has had more than 14 in a season since. He's had 11 touchdowns over his past 21 games in 2022 and 2023. Those are injury-riddled seasons. He was playing parts of different games during that span. I really like Cooper. Yikes! I really like Cooper Kupp, 45 to 1 to lead the NFL in receiving touchdowns. Now, before we go, folks, Josh Larky, the Dominator. This has been great. We've been finding fantasy football values using the betting markets for Underdog Fantasy, promo code Underworld. Now, I've had lower back and hip problems. Here's the update on the health. I've had severe nerve pain that runs from my legs down to my shins, beginning in the hip-ish area in the lower back. The ER doctor thought it was the sacroiliac nerve, but he wasn't fully sure. So if you're a medical practitioner in Dallas and have any insight, my DMs are open. At JLarkyTweets on Twitter. Find me, Josh Larky, at JLarkyTweets. Would be happy to discuss this further. Anyway, folks, thank you. Thank you. I hope you got something out of this. Draft Josh Jacobs. Draft the Packers. Draft Christian Watson. Draft Brian Thomas. Josh Larky. Out.
Hey, I want to thank you for being part of this broadcast. If you have any thoughts on it, leave a comment. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like. And if you want to see more shows on the Player Profiler channel, subscribe to it. That's how we know you want more.